Well, thank you everybody for coming. I'm Esther McGinnis. I'm an NDSU Extension horticulturist for Eastern North Dakota, so I'm Tom's counterpart in Toronto. I'm also the director of the NDSU Extension Master Garden Program. Now we're going to switch gears here from talking about edibles, and we're going to talk about your home lawn. So I'm going to give you some tips on growing a great lawn, but we only have 30 minutes here. So keep in mind, you can get a PhD in turf grass science. So I'm only going to scratch the surface here, but I'm hoping to give you 2 or 3 tips that you can implement this summer to have a better lawn. So we're going to talk about fertilizing, proper mowing techniques, and believe it or not, a lot of people are not mowing their lawn properly, and that's very detrimental. We're going to talk about managing thatch, and then end with a slide on watering and irrigation. Well, first off, let's talk about fertilizing the lawn. Now, I could give you a whole talk just on the different fertilizers that are out there. We're only going to focus, though, on one nutrient, and that's going to be nitrogen. Nitrogen is the limiting factor when it comes to turf grass. And that's because nitrogen is actually mobile in the soil. So if you get a lot of rain, if you have snow melt, nitrogen will steadily work its way into the soil profile. So that's so it's a very important nutrient for us, and it helps with the growth of the plant, both the shoots and the roots. It helps with the color, and you've all seen the color. You've got that nice dark green color as opposed to kind of that yellowish green color when it's deficient. Fertilizer also helps have a very thick lawn. And a thick lawn is going to be a low maintenance lawn. You're going to have fewer weed seeds germinate. So that's very important. Nitrogen helps the lawn recover after a long, hot summer. You know, while we still want to provide nitrogen to our soils, at the same time, we don't want to be giving it too much. So we're walking that fine line. If we provide too much nitrogen, you'll see that the lawn is going to just grow too much. Now, who wants to be spending every couple of days mowing their lawn? See, nobody, right?
It's my section.
There you go. There you go. So you don't want to apply to the excess. And if you put down too much fertilizer, you're going to find that you're going to have a thatch problem, and then your lawn will also will require more water because it'll be actively growing. And then this is not good, particularly for having a summer of drought. So our fertilizer recommendations are based on the fact that nitrogen is mobile and will work its way through the soil profile. So we recommend fertilizing 3 times a year, and this is for the standard lawn. So there's fertilizing around the summer holidays, Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Labor Day. Now, is it okay if you apply the day before Labor Day? Sure. We just wanted to have a recommendation that you could remember. So you could easily go a week or 2 before or after, and you would be just fine. But we wanted you to think of the certain times of the year. I do want to highlight the 4th of July application. The 4th of July application, you need to be a little bit more cautious. If you're not irrigating your lawn and it's in drought, then skip the application. We don't want to stress the lawn. However, if you're getting plenty of rainfall or if you're irrigating, then the 4th of July application is good. But at the same time, I wouldn't be applying if you're having 90-degree temperatures. We don't want to burn them off.
So you're saying you don't have to put a big long sprinkler on it? After you fertilize, do you have to water it?
You know, it does help. It does help to water in the fertilizer, yes. So that is helpful. But what I'm trying to say here is if your lawn is stressed, don't put down that 4th of July application. You want to make sure that your lawn is in good shape, and then you've got the potential for fall to water it in. Now, there's some individuals that have extremely high maintenance lawns. They may have a 4th application, but for most people, that's really just not necessary. And we see some people that get by with just 1 or 2 applications. So it really kind of depends on your goals and such. And we'll talk about which of these applications are the most important. As far as the rate, we recommend a pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet per application. And look at the label. You want to make sure that a good portion of that is a slow release fertilizer. And sometimes you'll see that there'll be like a water insoluble nitrogen. And that's what it means for slow release fertilizer. It doesn't immediately break down. It'll take some time to break down, and then we'll be able to continuously feed your lawn for like 4 or 6 weeks. So that's why we want to have some slow release in there to extend the period of time in which it feeds the lawn. Let's talk about the different applications. First of all, there's the spring application, which is late May around Memorial Day. We don't want to go too early. And the reason we don't want to is because as the lawn is waking up, it's first putting on a lot of root growth. And that root growth is very important because as the roots get longer, that makes the lawn more drought tolerant. The roots are able to mine the soil for water. So we don't want to interrupt the root growth by putting on too much nitrogen early. That's why we would rather apply mid to late May. If you put down too much fertilizer early in the season, the plant will start actually producing more top growth at the expense of the roots. Now, a lot of people put down granular crabgrass preventers. Most of the crabgrass preventers do have some nitrogen in them too. That's another reason we don't want to be putting down a bunch of nitrogen in early May, because already you're putting down a little shot with your crabgrass preventer. So save it until late May before you put down your first real application of nitrogen. Does that make sense? Of the 3 applications, the most important is Labor Day. And that is because you want your lawn to be recovering from the stresses of a hot, dry summer. We grow Kentucky bluegrass and the fine fescues. These are cool season grasses, and they have kind of this roller coaster type of growth. So you'll notice that it grows really well in spring, and then it recovers in fall. In between the 2 hills, we've got a summer decline. And we've all seen lawns that have gone dormant in the summertime. Really, our lawns don't like hot, dry weather. But it's very important for the lawn to come out of that summer drought and recover for fall. We want to make sure that we thicken up the turf again, increasing root mass and length, because the whole goal here is that the lawn has to recover before winter. It has to be photosynthesizing, producing carbohydrates to enable it to get through winter and then have a good spring greenup. So fall, very, very important. How late can you go with the fertilizer application? Well, we say Labor Day and really, anytime, end of August. I would have a cutoff for Devil's Lake of around mid-September. And the reason is we don't want to go too late. And this is based on research from the University of Minnesota. So we have this figure here. They fertilized either in September, October, or November. So the first bar is a ½ pound of nitrogen. The second bar is 1 pound of nitrogen. And they wanted to see, is the grass able to take it up? If you're applying your last fertilizer application in September, the lawn can utilize it. It will actually make use of the nitrogen, and it's not going to go to waste. However, if you're putting it down in October or November, it's less likely that it's going to be able to use it, and then it's going to be wasted. And boy, we don't like to waste things, do we? Another reason we don't like to put down lawn fertilizer in October is that we have more issues with snow mold if we're putting down a late application of fertilizer. Can you see this here? Yes. Yeah, it kind of looks a little bit like cobwebs. I'm going to tell you, this is my old lawn last year after we had 4 feet of snow beside the driveway for about 120 days. In that situation, you're gonna end up with snow. That's just the way it is. But in more moderate years, when we have less snow cover, if you can avoid putting down a late season application, that does minimize your chances of snowball.
Or was it, did it increase because of the snow mold? Because I know people, I didn't, someone did. Because the soil was warmer, did it freeze or?
That's part of it. So sometimes when we have a warmer soil underneath the snowpack that doesn't freeze, that is quite conducive for the growth of that mold and the mycelia that's growing underneath it. So that's part of it. But we know that anytime that we exceed 90 days of snow cover, we're more likely to have snow mold. Now, we're still understanding snow mold. We've got a gigantic research project that's going on in Wisconsin, University of Minnesota, even all the way into Norway. And we're still learning. It's very important because like the golf courses are so interested in this because, you know, they lose a lot of early season play if a portion of their greens die. Learning how to deal with snow mold. It's more complex than we realize. There may be some issues with potassium too. So it's really interesting and we're going to be seeing more and more research.
That's her question on fertilization. Does pH make a difference?
Higher pH, you know, it probably does. It probably does, but you know, we don't have specific recommendations for that. You know, there could be some issues with iron, I would think. But we don't have specific recommendations that we're giving with respect to higher pH lawns. I guess we're just assuming in North Dakota that most lawns are fairly high pH. But I have seen some individuals that have applied iron, because there seems to be a little bit of a problem with iron uptake, particularly in the spring. So you'll notice that there's an issue in early spring because instead of just being a uniform yellowish green, which is a symptom of nitrogen deficiency, you'll see more of a mottled green, and that's an iron deficiency. But for the most part, amending or applying iron is an expensive proposition. So good question, Bill. All right, so our next thing that we're going to talk about here is going to be mowing. So there really are best management practices for mowing. And I'm going to show you, you know, here's the difference between two lawns. So I'm going to tell you this is my lawn on the right. And yes, it does need to be mowed. But my neighbor next door moved in a couple years ago. This was his first house. And he's just learning how to take care of the lawn. Before this neighbor moved in, there was actually a better quality lawn on this side because they had used, the previous owner had used a really elite form of Kentucky bluegrass. But within a summer, the new homeowner had really harmed his lawn by scalping it. So you can see there's a big difference. So he thought, hey, if I put that mower deck really low, I won't have to mow as often. Well, but you've hurt your lawn. And as I drive through Fargo, I see this all over. It's just an epidemic because people think, hey, if I mow it really short, I won't have to mow it as often. So proper mowing height in general, the range is 2.5 to 3.5 inches for Kentucky bluegrass, which is our primary turf grass, and also for fine fescues. So we're seeing more and more fine fescues that are being grown because they're quite drought tolerant. They're also shade tolerant too. So for both of them, the range is 2.5 to 3.5. And if we get specific, we can have different tolerances depending on the time of season. So we go maybe a little bit lower for that first and second mowing. We're getting rid of the dead tissue that has developed over the winter. But for the big bulk of the growing season, you know, raise that mower deck as high as you can, 3.5 inches, and you'll be amazed. You'll be amazed how much healthier your lawn is. And then we drop it a little bit for the fall. If you're growing a tall fescue, you're going to be having your mower somewhere between 3 and 4 inches. because tall fescue is a little bit larger plant. Anybody growing a tall fescue here? My predecessor, Ron Smith, was a real big proponent of tall fescues, very drought tolerant, just a really hardy form of grass, just grows very vigorously. So what are the benefits of mowing high? Well, first of all, if you've got taller grass, you're going to have fewer weeds germinate. A lot of our weed seeds are light obligate or benefit from light when it comes to germination. If you can shade them, they're less likely to germinate. Another benefit is that your lawn is going to be more weeds and drought tolerant. And I'll elaborate on that in the next slide. It's going to be more tolerant of grub and insect damage because the root system is going to be longer, and in general, just lower maintenance. When it comes to, if you're mowing your grass really short, complete opposite. You're going to find that it's not going to be growing as vigorously, because when you're removing a lot of that leaf blade, you're removing green growing tissue. And that's where the chloroplasts are. So you all learned about photosynthesis in high school, right? Well, then plants make their own food. If you're removing a lot of that green tissue, you're going to be harming the plant. It's not going to grow as well. It's going to have a shorter root system, and in general, it's going to be higher maintenance. If there's one slide that you take away from this, it's this one. So the longer the leaf blade, the more robust the root system. So this is the big point to take away. Mow high, raise that mower deck. The longer the leaf blade, the longer the root system. You've got a healthier root system. It's going to be able to mine the soil for water and take it up. It's going to be more drought tolerant. And after the last few years, we really want to have things that are drought tolerant, right? Other mowing practices. Don't remove more than a third of the length of the turf grass blade at any one time. So this again goes back to the fact that you're removing part of the plant. You're removing tissue that photosynthesizes and makes food. It can recover quite easily if you're only removing a quarter or a third of the turf blade. So this does mean that you're going to have to mow once a week. You've got to mow regularly enough that you're not seeing windrows of hay collecting behind you. Now, I know that some of you go on vacation and you're gone for a couple of weeks. It can't be helped in that situation. But for all the other weeks when you're home, remember to mow regularly so you're only removing a third of the turf grass blade. All right, I'm going to give you a math problem here. So this is called interactive learning. So assume you're maintaining a 3-inch tall lawn. Using the 1/3 rule, how tall can you allow the grass to grow before cutting it? See, you didn't think you were going to have a math test today, right? 4.5 inches. So 4.5 inches. So you would remove a third of the blade, and then you're down to 3 inches. Now I'm going to show you this in table form. Now this is kind of interesting. So before we discuss it, I want to show you the columns. Now this column here, the third one, that's the height after mowing. That's where you're setting the mower deck. The first column is going to be the turf grass height before you cut it. The second column is you're removing a third of it, and then the mowing frequency in days based on the 1/3 rule. So I'm first going to show you, you're maintaining your lawn at a 2-inch height. You allow it to grow to 3 inches, you cut 1/3 of it off. So that means you cut off 1 inch, you're down to 2 inches, and then your mowing frequency is going to be once every 5 days. Now, if you're maintaining a 3-inch height, you allow it to grow to 4.5 inches. You're removing 1.5 inches, which means you can go a little bit longer before you mow. And that means you're mowing every 7.5 days.
What about removing the grass that you cut?
Clippings, we'll talk about clippings.
Okay.
Definitely gonna talk about clippings, but this is showing you that you can wait an extra day or two to mow if you're maintaining it at a little taller height, which means maybe you're mowing maybe 1 or 2 fewer times over the course of the summer. Would you like to have an afternoon bath? And go fishing, a wonderful fishing spot here. So other mowing practices, mow when the lawn is dry. If you're mowing when it's wet, you're tearing that turf grass blade, it's going to be jagged. Also sharpen your mower blade. If you've got a dull mower blade, what you're gonna find is that it tears and creates a jagged edge on the turf grass blade. And if you've got a jagged cut on it, it's gonna lose water more quickly as opposed to using a sharp blade, which makes a clean cut. So important to get that mower blade sharpened. And then as you're mowing, change the direction that you're mowing. And what I mean by this is if you're used to mowing east to west, go perpendicular, go north and south. You're less likely to end up with wheel tracks, you're less likely to have compaction if you mix it up a little bit. So you'll see, when it comes to those beautiful baseball fields that you see on TV, they're mowing in a couple different directions and mixing it up so that they're not creating those wheel tracks. And drop your clippings. See here, you want to talk about that? All right, so you drop your clippings, and the reason you drop your clippings is because there's nitrogen in your grass clippings. If you collect it consistently all throughout the year, you're removing nitrogen that could have been available to your plants. So if you cut, bag it, and remove it, you would actually have to fertilize another time to make up for it. So we're saying, make sure that you drop your clippings, and then you don't have to do another fertilizer application.
So in the spring, if your lawn gets really, let's say we have a lot of rain and it gets really long, and you still wouldn't bag it, you just do it, would you mow over a couple times, or would you bag?
I would bag it in that situation because if you're having tall grass and you're leaving kind of those windows of hay, you want to get that off because that's going to interfere with the plant's photosynthesizing. So in that situation, yes, I would remove it.
The other solution was you mow in a circle. And you blow it out.
There, okay.
You have one window.
There you go. There you go. I like it. What about those tree leaves in fall? Do you have to painstakingly rake that up? Well, new research is showing that you can actually mow that into the lawn. So if you've got a mulching lawnmower, or if you make several passes to chop that up, you can in fact, just use your lawnmower to process the leaves without having to rake it. And you'll know if you're doing a good job or not, because you should be able to see your lawn. If you see that there's like big piles of leaves on your lawn, that's not, then you're going to have to bag. But if you're able to process it enough that you can see most of your lawn, then you're in good shape. But you want those tree leaves to filter into the lawn because number one, those tree leaves do contain some nitrogen, but number two, it's adding some organic matter to the soil, which helps with soil structure. Final mowing of the season. I used to tell people, mow short, 1.5 to 2 inches, particularly to prevent snow mold damage or mold damage. Who's had mold damage? So pretty common in North Dakota. The new thinking is that that's too short. So I'll show you the length here in a minute. The rationale is that your lawn is still continuing to photosynthesize even long into fall. So we want to make sure that we're not cutting too short, even when the temperatures are cooler. So this is a recommendation from one of my colleagues at the University of Minnesota Extension. So he's a dedicated turf grass specialist. He's not a horticulture specialist like Tom and myself. He's He's been completely turf grass. He's also been the executive director of the North Central Turf Grass Association. So this is his recommendation for the final mowing height of the season. So if you're mowing in the 2.5 to 3 inch range, you're good. Just maintain that same height and you should be just fine. If you're mowing 3.5, 4 inches, reduce that down to 3 inches for the final height. However, if you're having a bad history of snow mowing, you're probably going to want to reduce it down to 2.5, but do that before the final mowing. Maybe do it for 2 or 3 mowings before the end of the season. The lawn starts to acclimate a little bit to that lower height. And then consider using a bagging attachment on that last mow to reduce debris, because if you do have a lot of debris and have a history of snow mold, there could be problems in the future. That makes sense? All right, so we talked about don't bag your clippings, drop them. Another thing to think about with your clippings is that a lot of us use lawn herbicides on it too. So you may be using Trimac, that's got MCPP, 2,4-D, dicamba. The dicamba in particular is problematic. If you collect your lawn clippings and take them to the city compost site, the dicamba in there is still present on those clippings. Be present for at least 3 mowings on those clippings, and it could in fact contaminate the compost. We want to be careful there. And even another thing to mention here is we don't want to be using any farm chemicals on the lawns, because the farm chemicals, that's not legal to use. And once again, that could certainly be problematic for the compost stream. Wanted to, end up here with thatch. Oh, we've got a couple minutes here. I'm probably not going to get all the way through. So thatch is the layer in between the soil and the root system there. It's that organic matter. And it's made up of, decomposing roots, rhizomes, and crowns. The lawn clippings aren't going to cause thatch problems, because the lawn clippings are the leaf blade portion, and that's mostly water. That will break down quite easily. So I'm going to just speed through this. If you have a thatch layer that's more than a 1/2 inch, you may want to consider using a dethatcher or a core aerator. So the dethatcher is what we call a vertical mower. It uses knives to essentially, rake out the excess organic matter. You'll see that it actually it breaks out huge amounts of material that would then need to be taken off your lawn. That's a quick fix for using it, but it's more destructive to the lawn. The other remedy for thatch is core aeration. And core aeration is when you have a hollow tine core that takes up these soil pores. And you've all seen this. I like to call this the 1,000 little dogs treatment, right? So you walk through the neighborhood and you see all these soil pores. So that's another method of remedying thatch. It relieves soil compaction, allows air and water to infiltrate. And then it's a little bit slower in reducing thatch. You may need to do this, for 2 or 3 years, but you'll find that over time, your thatch problem is going to be lessened. And then furthermore, core aeration is less destructive. And you would want to be doing these processes when the lawn is actively growing. All right, so I think I'm at 2 o'clock. Just wanted to mention watering. Lawns need 1 inch of water a week, somewhere between 1 inch and 1.5 inches. If you can apply that all in one watering, that's better, because it will then infiltrate to the 6 or 8 inch depth. And that would be better than breaking this into like 3 or 4 waterings. So water deeply, but infrequently. I'm at 2 o'clock now, and I know we're going to have our round table discussion with Tom Hall. So if you've got any questions on anything we discussed, please stick around. Welcome.
How about, should we say, does anybody have any lawn care questions? Just follow up here.
Shit that the hospitals about like the, you know, that involved us previously, but what about, trying to more non-mowing or the, trying to be the more ecological?
Oh, yes, there's certainly that. I'm in the Master Garden Program and we are actually advocating growing of bee lawns. And there are different flowering species that we call bee lawns. And
Like the honeybee.
honeybees, bumblebees, and also butterflies. The mixed bee use has 3 different flowering components. It's Dutch white clover, creeping thyme, which has some pretty normal flowers, and self-heal. Now, this research was done in another state. We're finding that of the 3 flowering species that are used in the lawn mix, it's only the Dutch white clover that's really persisting. But even though Dutch white clover is not considered a native, it does have a lot of benefits for bees. So we are actually giving out signs and free clover seed if individuals want to in fact plant it in the lawn.
We had a little experiment on our farm, so it's 2 years ago, we got really bad drought, basically killed the lawn. And the next spring, Mom said, what the heck am I doing? I have to replant this lawn. And I said, well, you can't mess it up, it's already ruined, so why don't you just try something? And we just didn't mow it for an entire year. And what was there came back and went to seed, self-seeded, and it looked like that, but it worked. This last year, because you just worked really well.
Good, I'm glad. Yes.
I have a small pad for horses.
Mhm.
And one year, over a year ago, I didn't put the horses out there at all.
Mhm.
I had other places to put them, and I didn't let it grow. We grow and grow now. Because I was starting to get a lot of weeds out there.
Mhm.
But I don't like using chemicals on because they're grazing. And I had a little slough area that had a lot of weeds in that. I didn't know what to do. So I let the whole thing grow 1 year and it all went to seed. And last summer, I didn't hardly have any weeds. And that slough was not right. And the guy told me this would happen if I did that. And he did.
What's the toughest plant on earth?
Help us one.
Plant. Toughest plant. Grass.
Grass, whatever. Yeah.
That's why we don't mow our prairies. It just grows by itself.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I realized I was overdoing. Overgrazing and something.
Right.
When they eat, they eat in this spot, but they may not like this spot, so that one.
Just like her neighbor there. Cut it too short. Grass doesn't like it.
Yeah, tell
I
them.
gotta-
That's good.
That grass, yeah, keep the sheep off especially.
Yeah.
It really is too short, and we're gonna be seeing a trend getting away from Kentucky bluegrass. I'm not fond of Kentucky bluegrass per se. I really like the fine fescues. And people are growing them taller, they wait till it's 6 inches or so, and then cut it down to 4 inches. So we're seeing people do that at the lake, and it's surprisingly drought tolerant. The one issue that we see with some of these fine fescues is there's more snow. But they're gonna start breeding more to try and develop a more disease resistance. But there's been a lot of new research on fine fescues, much lower maintenance than Kentucky grass. I mean,
Right, and that's like how you said, like that ecological stuff, like you don't want to be mowing so much. And there's those no mow grasses and they're fine fescues. And also that's nice thing out here in the west where I am, they're more tolerant of salt than Kentucky bluegrass. So, but it's a good quality grass, fine fescue.
A good share of my lawn is there. And I live on my great grandma's home. So what is my grass? It was, you know, I remember when they came on, they built the house. And put some trees there, a good share of my lawn was there.
Okay, I'll bet Kentucky bluegrass if someone made me guess. But what you can do is you can let it go to seed. And, or, I mean, if you can look at a grass, you can give a grass blade to Esther, and she can look at the oracles and the leaf shapes and everything. That gets hard.
It's really.
But you can just let it go to seed. You can easily tell what it is.
Yeah.
Let it go to seed, take some pictures, it will tell you.
Comes back. You know,
Good, okay.
I like dandelions. So that's great.
That's not a problem per se. I mean, we know that.
It's a
dandelions-
wildflower.
They do.
Well,
They
My
do.
wife does it. It isn't the yellow flower, it's after that ends. But it's native grass. And I was mowing the end of October because of the rain. It came back and all of a sudden I had all more.
Sorry about that.
You know, it was, no, that's right. I tried to miss. You know,
Me too. I had to mow a lot this last summer.
You know, what do I do now?
Darn that rain.
Stop.
It's a mixed blessing. Yeah.
And I think these bi-directional mowers, you see the blades seem to travel much faster, make a cleaner cut. You know, it just, geez, those are, and plus it cut my lawn mowing time in half. I can cover that thing just, I make turn marks. But that prairie grass comes back.
Well, it's well adapted. I mean,
That's right.
it's well adapted over the years. I mean, I wouldn't change it.
Right.
I mean, it works.
It's an
Don't try and fix it.
To give us some suited varieties for that sort of production yet, or?
So you're talking high tunnels?
Go
Per
ahead.
se. I mean, we do have trials that kind of Spliffle did out of that. And you would be able to download her master's thesis. Now, that was never published into a journal form, but there are definitely some recommendations there. We do have a grant that we're working with SDSU to do high tunnel workshops. We're gonna have another workshop October 10th and 11th of 2024, just on high tunnels, and we'll be bringing in speakers from several different states.
Yeah, we have a few of our growers, like we worked over 400 growers last year. And we
I
have,
kind of,
no,
oh, I'm vegetable. No, I'm sorry.
no, but about 5 of them do work. And they mentioned that they're growing in a hoop house or a high tunnel. Listen, what I would do if I had a hoop house or a high tunnel, I'd go get my friend Johnny's seed catalog. And they have special recommendations for greenhouse, like greenhouse cucumbers, greenhouse tomatoes. I would start with that and go from there. That's what I would focus on. Because, I don't do a lot of work with high tunnels because we just don't have we just don't have a lot of vegetables grown that way. It's kind of. We need
The
a,
person out of Jamestown, son, started we have a faith project.
yeah,
I have attended a workshop 2 years
high
ago.
tunnels.
I believe so. I mean, good Lord.
Yeah,
I mean, pictures of 12-foot high tomato plants.
Right.
he does a nice job. Really, really
And I don't know
nice.
if they're still doing it or not, but that was a real, go to his workshop. If he's speaking anywhere.
Yep, we've invited him to speak in the past. He's been part of our roundtable. He's really good. And what's been really nice about what they do is that the kids get involved, and this has really helped them finance some of their college expenses. It's been nice.
12 foot high tomato plant. So,
You want to talk about how they trellis?
No.
How they trellis tomatoes?
Well, it's a perennial, you know, and if you get an indeterminate vine, they'll keep growing. But I've never grown a 12-foot tomato. I've never.
I mean, he prunes, it. I mean, he spends a lot of time.
Indeterminate vines, you have to prune, yeah. Otherwise, they just become monster bushes. Yeah, you gotta train them.
Yeah. Stayed in our junior master garden. And I planted the tomatoes like in decent rows away. I had to like live and try not to break them. They're just huge, giant bushes. The deer don't feed them.
There you go. There you go.
They didn't like the shirt.
But I am gonna try to garden inside. I am gonna try growing something.
You mean like you're gonna make a little greenhouse or something?
Well, I'm gonna move it back,
Okay,
you know. Has enough windows plus putting in, roll lamps, which I do have one. I just never used them. Just peas. You know, buy sugar peas that you can go in there and eat, just to have a break.
you're gonna grow peas in your greenhouse?
Oh, I don't know, can you?
Of
Some of the
course.
things that I miss not doing in the winter, during,
Oh, you wanna grow in the winter,
you know, is be able to go out and
at
eat.
least your fresh peas.
Yeah,
One of life's simple pleasures.
yes, so
Everybody should have a row of peas in their garden, just to eat in the garden.
can we grow peas inside during the winter?
I'm gonna give you a shortcut. I like to grow microgreens and shoots. So this is also in the Johnny's selected seed catalog. If you look under microgreens and shoots, you'll find that you can grow pea shoots. I grow them until they're about 6 inches tall, and then I trim them and I trim them and I make salads out of just the greens. And the actual shoots themselves have that pea flavor to it. So I usually get like the tendril peas for pea shoots.
And this is from Johnny's?
Johnny's, yes. So just look under micro.
Like that's she's eating the vines.
Well,
Yes.
that's fine.
Okay.
It tastes like a pea, you know, I don't get that taste.
It's 10 to 12 days. I can also get you the corn flavor that in actually less time than that, because you can buy corn. And that's a little different process. So with the corn, you get it to germinate and then you grow it in the closet. So you can do either corn or you can do popcorn. You grow it for about 5 days and then you blanch it, what it's called. You're growing it in the closet. You don't want it to turn green. If it turns green, it gets woody. You harvest after about 5-6 days before the coleoptile opens up, or it's still quite rolled up. And then you harvest it when it's about this tall and you eat it and you think you're like eating corn on the cob. It's weird.
Okay.
It's really weird. It's fun. It's fun for kids. It's just so sweet.
The biggest challenge you have in the winter is the light again, the low light levels. And that's the thing you're gonna have to focus on to be successful.
Well, if I have this, and I did buy this, I think. in-
Quantity of light, not necessarily the quality of light, the quantity. The
Okay,
grow light has great quality of light, the blues, the reds, the perfect mix. But the quantity is the key. In the winter, there's the indoor light levels in a sunny window are 10% of what's outdoors. So you gotta, that's one thing to be on the lookout for, your pea shoots or whatever, that make sure they don't get tall and leggy, right? That's the key. But if it shoots, that's not gonna be such a big issue because it's just relying on the energy in the seed itself. But anyhow, I always it's a good idea to play around and try something new every year.
you know, that's, again,
Why not?
it's a. During the winter, there's more light that comes in that side, but it's still way less.
Right. Yeah. Sounds like fun.
I have a question on this aeration of your yard.
Mhm.
Our, kind of our front yard is a big area. And it's where all of our activities. And over the years, I think it's compacted. I think it's just too hard and the ground doesn't do good there. And I was thinking, I need to aerate this thing, but this sounds dumb coming from a guy, but I don't know where you find the thing to do that.
I don't.
It's gonna be a rental, like hardware.
Ironside,
Oh, yeah,
Ironside rents,
oh, yeah.
yeah.
A core aerator.
Oh, yeah.
They have two, Thatcher and they have a core.
Thatcher or a core area.
No, it doesn't pull a core out.
It's got to.
No,
Oh,
the core aerator does.
okay, this just punches.
That's,
That's not.
you don't
a
want
core aerator.
that
No,
because that compacts the soil.
That's why I didn't help.
Right, because there is a gap at the end, but you compacted everything where that puncture, that spike.
It didn't really make.
That's why you gotta have a core aerator.
Oh, they don't. I don't think.
They're pretty common.
I mean, it should look like this.
Yeah,
You should.
you should.
People-
It's gotta throw.
When I saw that, and that mine didn't, no, it just punched it.
No, you don't want that.
But-
That's a spike. That's a spike
Right,
aerator.
they have paint that looks like that.
Yes,
That's what that was?
Yep.
Like irrigated?
You don't want that.
Okay. So a Thatcher would be better than,
Cause the thatcher rips out the dead stuff, the thatch.
that'd be better than doing.
I think so.
yes.
I use one of those.
If you need it, make sure you need it.
Spring.
Make sure you got at least half inch of that,
Picture of that.
at least.
Well, actually, we have a fertile.
But that's not gonna
Never
help you with your compaction.
Yeah.
With the
That's what we need
compaction
to-
issue, it's better to have a core area.
You're fine.
Where, you know, where,
Well, I'm from Fargo, so I don't know what you have here, but I would think any major lawn care company here might be willing to do it for a couple $100s.
Well,
And then you don't,
Or a hardware store. You got a big hardware store, they often rent,
but.
or a rental, an equipment rental place.
Well, Ironside, try that. Maybe they have this for irrigated. I just asked for the wrong thing. Because they have a lot of lawn stuff to rent.
I bet they have it. It's pretty common.
Mhm.
It's common. It's not unusual.
Yeah.
I bet it,
Well, when I go to ask at these places, it seems like it's unusual. I get blank looks, you know.
well,
So,
well, is that the manager of the store or just a high school kid?
yeah,
There you go.
I think that's what my problem is.
You know, if all else fails, I'm sure you got a lawn care service.
I never.
You could
thought of
hire them.
asking.
You can hire them in the core area for you,
Yeah,
if you really wanted to.
I mean, that's what I do. I mean, you're not gonna see me trying to wrestle this into a pickup, you know? I just hire it done.
is it something you walk behind? With the pulpit?
Well, there's different kinds. Mhm.
Going into the new years, can you give us a view on what's to look out from horticulture research and NDSU or events or anything that we should be aware of?
For events, well, why don't you talk about spring?
Not what that was happening.
We're just gonna take a break. It's been a long career. So the same stuff we've done in the past, we're gonna keep doing it. So we have the spring fever garden forums that you mentioned. We'll be doing that. We'll get that going in a couple months. So late March, we'll get that going. And he said the variety trials, we're gonna be doing that again. And I don't know, this master gardener training going on.
January. I
Jan,
need
there
to
you go.
talk to you about that.
Oh, okay, I better leave quickly. And Esther's got a lot of workshops throughout the summertime. We're not that far from Fargo that, you know, even Absaraka, it's a nice thing to go check out.
And we're gonna have our 40th or 50th anniversary of Absaraka, which is the horticultural research farm. It's a Dale Herman Arboretum. and there's gonna be a big blowout.
It's quite a place.
And was it September 8th, 9th? I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it's the Saturday after Memorial Day weekend, but we're gonna have a big blowout event. And it won't just be, woody and tree research. It'll be everybody that's doing horticultural research.
One thing about gardens is going out to the farmer's market and talking to these people that are bringing in, the biggest change that they have is when they put an irrigation system. And start putting water, good water. That's when they, they come in with a few things and then all of a sudden, boom. And the really serious participants out there are the ones that have these irrigation systems.
We are a semi-arid state. The biggest limitation to agriculture, gardening, is water. And that's why this is a concern right up here in the north. You guys are dry right now. We gotta,
I'm amazed at what
well, last year was,
I just still can't believe crossing my record. That there was anything at all, and it didn't actually didn't soybeans and really. I don't know how.
well, the industry's just been
Yes,
amazing
Yeah.
in their
I was
development.
in the feed business in the 80s.
Okay, there you go. See,
It's nothing.
it's changed.
Yeah.
It's revolutionary. What's going on? Revolutionary.
Corn.
Amazing.
Yeah, 50 bushels, I do test plots, 50 bushel. That's, 180 bushels.
Right. It's amazing. That's planting.
Me too. For driving over, right? Okay. Or what did what's your take on like, potted vegetable plants? If you could do it on your porch, like area to do. I mean, I know we've got the one container garden from your garden, from there, you launched it and stuff, but I really struggle with keeping them moist, like in the plastic pots that that you say that's better, obviously the terracotta pots and stuff, but what would be, if they're full sun still on the deck and stuff, what would be an ideal situation? Is it deeper pots or bigger pots or smaller pots?
You want to?
Yeah, I'll start it. Okay, the bigger the pot, the better. Because we want the biggest root system we can have. The bigger the pot, the better. Then the other thing that I would recommend is mulch your plants. I was a bachelor a long time. And I used to have an apartment, I had lots of vegetables. I put wood chip mulching on my potted plants. It cut my watering by half. So big pot makes it.
It's even bigger, mulching.
Yeah, huge difference.
Difference. And it did okay, it actually produced a lot of bolanos, and those will seem to perform better than some other pots, even though they have little brains. But I don't know, it's kind of an interesting summer, so tomatoes were always ability, and my peppers are thriving. So I do like an inch of water kind of in there, and then I just let it soak in. Like once every 2 days or so, and they produce a lot, but I I'll grow tomatoes and that's about it.
My experience with containers was with potatoes. This past year was interesting. So I had bought them over the last couple of years because we have a friend that does it out in Utah. They just, so I planted potatoes with 6 of them. And then I had all this compost from cattle pens. And I put that down and laid the same potatoes on the top and threw straw on it. And they were twice as big on that. I had a lot of potatoes in containers, but they were all small. The size were there, I had a lot of them, but the size of the other ones was, and it was the same soil. It was all heavily composted. 10-year-old. And, but they were smaller.
If you kind of restrict the root system, I mean, you're doing bonsai, essentially, you're doing bonsai potatoes, they're smaller, you're restricting the root system, because yeah, then it would be a smaller plant.
So some deals, the smaller one is fixed nice and all that, and the other one is you chop up and roast.
Like, so your celery this year. The harvest celery by the outside, like, can you just keep taking the outside branches off, or can you just cut it? The ranger, how do you do that? That was the thing. I tried to read on this. Still.
I've never grown celery.
I've never, yeah,
Just never.
I think,
No.
I'm trying to see.
yeah,
Yeah, like, no, yeah, it was just normal celery and then, I don't know, it got pretty branchy, it stayed pretty short and like little, kind of like when you go to the wing shop, you have the really skinny celeries, it's kind of like that, so I said, and it did okay, but I just, when I came trying to harvest, I'm like, I just cut it off, or do I pull each branch off and then put it on, so that was an interesting one.
I think you could do either.
commercial grower cuts the whole thing,
Yeah.
right? But I think if you hit the outer branches, you would still allow for some inner growth to have a longer harvest.
It's not a huge garden, we never wanted to go there now, and myself, so, even. Previous got a little bit, sure. Not a couple of times.
Any other questions?
There you go. Anyone have any other questions or discussion? I mean.
I did have a quick question. I bought a company right next door to my yard. And it's just a simple grass question, but they had a driveway for 30 years. And now it's just all full of weeds. What would be my steps to make that into grass? I don't know.
So, I mean, was it, I mean, like a gravel driveway? That's gonna be a little harder. I mean, you want to remove gravel would be the thing, because then you're not, I mean, you really do need to have some active soil there. So I would remove the gravel, you know, you get it, it's, and then maybe you need to bring in some topsoil, good quality topsoil. Just,
Okay.
yeah, bring in some good quality topsoil.
That's something you buy in bags, there's.
Right,
Yeah.
then you don't know what you
You're
get.
gonna go broke. You gotta have 4 inches of topsoil,
Yeah.
4 inches,
Yeah,
and the compaction and the gravel.
Would you kill the weeds first? Like, wait until the weeds?
I didn't kill the weeds a couple of times because, I mean, that does help. So maybe put down some Roundup, you know, and then, you know, as you bring in your soil, you might have another flush of weeds. I mean, depending on where you get your topsoil. You don't know if you're gonna get a weed topsoil. I would then use Roundup again, you know, to make sure that you've taken care of the weeds. And then once you started with that nice soil that's level, then you can certainly either sod it or seed it. If you're seeding, I put down maybe a half pound of nitrogen, because the nitrogen actually helps with seed germination. So I would do a little bit of seed feeding at the beginning, and that does help with it. And then I'm going to apply herbicide again until that lawn has been mowed 3 times. The 3 times, yeah. So it's going to be a little tender at that early stage. Now, there's some pre-emergence that you can use, but they're kind of iffy. I can't remember them off the top of my head. That would be my crabgrass presentation. I've got different.
So you got a gravel driveway
Yeah,
that you wanna turn into turf.
well, I like half of it. So what the deal is, I bought my neighbor's yard and they had this dirt driveway. Front of the alley,
Okay.
and it just looks like crap.
But it's not really gravel, just like dirt, just compacted dirt. Right,
You want to break out
right.
the grass.
Yeah, it's been there for years. I don't know the best way to do it.
Check your topsoil, make sure you got some topsoil, the black soil, get a shovel. See how, get in the dirt, and then, that compaction could be a big issue. So like, you're gonna have to aerate that thing.